Hello, I want to share with you some life lessons I've learned from parties, things that have helped me navigate as I move forward in my life. The first lesson I learned from a friend back in my early 20s. He said that the philosopher Paul Sartre once said the secret to life is knowing when to leave the party. I laughed when I heard this because I was somebody who stayed at parties too long, stayed till the break of dawn when, really I should have left hours ago. And this is something that's important in life, I realize, like knowing when to leave your job, knowing when to move, maybe knowing when to leave a relationship. These are all very tricky things. And we've all seen people who've stayed too long. Maybe there's that person who got that job in high school, got a good paying job at the post office or something. They were the first to be able to buy a car, settle down. And then 30 years later, they're still at that job, repeating the same thing. Knowing when to leave is an important part of life. And there's no real answer to this because sometimes people leave too early. We've all seen people who are like, I'm going to quit my day job and become an actor. And they make this jump. And then 6 months later, they're like asking for their old job back. Knowing when to leave, when to stay is a very important part. And there's no real formula to this. But I think just having that concept that this is an important thing to understand. And the one guide I have is, are you running away from something or moving towards something? So somebody who leaves their job early because they want to have this dream of becoming an actor, sometimes they're avoiding something, and you can tell there's that kind of lottery mentality about it. This is going to be what saves me. This is going to get me out of my jam. If you're leaving because you're avoiding, then it's probably not going to work. Same as if you're staying because you're comfortable, then it's probably not a good idea. Life is about taking risks. And sometimes in my life, I've made a jump when I didn't know what was going to happen. I just knew it was time to go. Because if you're in a pond, if you're in a small pond, at a certain point, it stunts your growth. And there's been a few times in my life where, I started something new that was really good. Say in my early 20s, I became a tree planter. It was a kind of a dream job for me. I could work hard for a few months in the summer and then travel throughout the winter. But I realized it wasn't something you could keep doing forever. And sometimes the guideline is seeing people who do stick around, seeing the people who are in that job for 20 years, and you go, do you want to be like that? So the first lesson is knowing when to leave the party. And sometimes, that idea about jumping, avoiding, sometimes we do have to leave something that's not good, and that's okay. But still, a framework to have around that is that you're not leaving something, you're moving towards something. And this can help orientate us and have us in a positive regard. So that's life lesson number one. And the second one is, despite the rock and roll song, you can't party every day. Don't try to party every day. We've all seen what happens when people try to maintain a party. People who try to stay high, it doesn't work, you burn out, and you become kind of a caricature. You become not a full person. And this is obvious. I don't want to make an obvious point about moderation or anything like that, but more how it applies to other things. Because just as we know that, addictions aren't just about drugs or alcohol, you can be addicted to work. You could be addicted to reading books. You could be addicted to working out. An addiction can be anything that you're doing to avoid other things, or you're doing to kind of overly manage your emotions and not really deal with them. And in the same way, I see a lot of people try to stay happy all the time. And this is the same way as trying to party all the time. We want to be happy, but life isn't just about happiness. You lack a depth of character if you try to stay happy all the time. There's sadness, there's fear, there's anger. There's a lot of things that some days, instead of being happy, you should be angry. There's things in the world right now to be angry about. There's things to be concerned about. There's things to be sad about. Being a full person is about having all those emotions, not just trying to be happy. And if this is new to you, I suggest maybe reading a book like Carla McLaren's The Language of Emotions, because I think some people don't understand that all emotions have their purpose and their time, and it's important for us as a full person. If we want to be authentic and real and full, we're willing to feel all those different emotions. A subset of this law about not partying all the time is, another thing that I see is that people think one size fits all. They discover something and then they think that's going to do everything for them. So they learn how to meditate, and then they think meditation is going to fix everything in their lives, and then they can get maybe into spiritual bypassing. Maybe instead of meditating, they need to do some therapy. Or maybe instead of meditating, they need to just go out and meet new friends. Their meditation, which was good to begin with, can be used in a way that helps them avoid other things. And I see this with other things. You have an idea that's like really affected how you understand life. One thing that's happening a lot now is people are understanding the role of trauma, but then they're seeing all of life through a trauma lens. And that's just not a good way to live your life. Same with politics. Politics is very important, but you don't want to see life through all a political lens, especially through just left and right. Seeing people as just left and right, it's such a narrow way to live. Yes, it's important, but don't apply it to everything in life. So you can't party all the time, and one size does not fit all. And the third lesson is, don't show up at a party empty-handed. And this is more than just the politeness of, bring a bottle of wine when you come to a party. Or if you're at a potluck, don't be that guy who just buys a bag of chips on the way there because you didn't have time to prepare. Bring something to the party. Be a participant. One example of this, back in the 90s, I lived in Vancouver on Commercial Drive, and there was this community festival there that was really great during Halloween time. It was called the Parade of Lost Souls. And it was a real neighborhood community thing. Everybody dressed up. Everybody was involved. You'd walk through this alley, and every household on that street did something. Somebody had a puppet show in their yard. Somebody was playing their spooky electric guitar on their roof. And everybody was involved, and it was a really exciting thing. But then it got known, and then more people showed up. And a few years later, there was thousands of people showing up, but most of them weren't dressed up. They were just spectators. They were just like looking, oh, look at that person's costume. And it just took away from everything. They weren't participants, they were spectators. So if you show up at a party, bring something. And that doesn't mean you have to be the person with a great story or who pulls out the guitar and sings a song. Maybe what you bring to the party is, being a good listener. Maybe you're the person who comes to the party and, sees the person in the corner who's not talking to anybody. You have your own thing to bring to the party, but bring something to the party. Don't just expect the party to do it for you. And I think I had one more thing here. What was it? Oh, on that note, if you're young, I'll give you a pass on this, because there's 3 stages to learning. The first is exploration and just taking things in. So that might be you at this point. You're going to parties because you're just absorbing. And the second phase in learning is integration, your own personal digesting of what you've taken in, what you've experienced. You've been to a lot of music things, and now you're like, wow, what do I want to do with it? And the last stage in learning is communication, when you give back. So there's 3 stages in life. First, you absorb, you work on yourself, and then you give it back. So at some point, our goal is to be somebody who gives back, to have something to bring to the party. So these are my life lessons from partying. Knowing when to leave a party, not trying to party all the time, and having something to bring to the party. All right, thanks.